Hi, everybody. Welcome to week 2 of social and emotional development. This time we're going to look at chapter 15, guiding social behaviors. I hope you enjoyed week 1. Our week 2 announcements include be sure your initial discussion board post due by Wednesday at midnight. Be sure and get that up. On most assignments, just a reminder, I'm looking for normally at least 3 to 5 sentences per question. So in an online environment, I really need your answers explained well so that I can tell that you're understanding the content. So be sure and give me a good 3 to 5 sentences per question. Video responses. Be sure and watch the video by clicking on the link in the video section of each week. You'll notice that on the left-hand side of your screen. And lastly, be sure and watch your due dates. Print out that page if you need to and mark off the items that you've completed because sometimes life gets busy and we forget if we've submitted an assignment or not. So I want to be sure you're hitting those due dates and getting the points that you deserve. Next, our student question of the week. When is the CCC, OTC, CSC graduation? So our 3 colleges are combined, and I get this question quite a bit. Graduation is once a year, normally at the end of May. I'm not sure if we have the 2017 date down yet, but it's normally the end of May. If you finish your program anywhere between June of 2016, so past grads, and up to August of 2017. So past the walk date, but only up to August, you're eligible to walk in the May graduation ceremony. Now, you will be getting your diploma in the mail, but you're welcome to walk in this ceremony. It's fantastic. I've been to a lot of graduations before, and I just have to say, the CCC graduation it's a lot of fun. We do wear caps and gowns. You do walk across the stage, but it's just a great celebration. It's not stuffy at all. At some graduations, you're not allowed to decorate your cap. You know, they have to keep it very professional, and actually cap decoration is encouraged because it's so much fun and it's great to see what the students have come up with. So just a note on that, if you would like to, it's there for you. You don't have to pay any extra fees. Your cap and gown has already been included in your tuition. So I would love to see you there. Next, we're moving right on to chapter 15. And I find this chapter so relevant to many of the things that we go through in ECE. The first thing, misbehavior. We always have to deal with this. Very interesting. Dreiker's list of underlying goals for all misbehavior is attention, power, revenge, and inadequacies. So sometimes we can't just look at the misbehavior and assume why it's happening. We really have to critically analyze what's going on with the child, what's going on with the environment, and to truly understand why it's there. So it's important as an ECE instructor that we don't just react with that gut instinct, that sometimes we sit back and we think about it for a moment. So I thought this was really interesting. Attention, power, revenge, or inadequacies. Next, Gordon's teacher effectiveness training has us look at the importance of active listening with our students, using I messages, and using you messages. So here's a couple examples. Of course, active listening is making eye contact, getting down on the child's level, and repeating back what they're saying so that they know you're really listening. An I message would be, I really like the way you helped Susie pick up her blocks, and that's letting the child know that we see what they're doing and we appreciate it, and it's coming as an I message. A you message would be, you have been a great helper today. So for the child, it's taking it very personally. We're saying you in particular have been a great helper today. And don't discount how important these messages are. Sometimes in ECE, we have to step back and really think about how often we're using I and you messages because they're so important. Here's a list of some great iMessage starters. And hey, there's nothing wrong with having these printed out for you to refer to in the beginning just as a reminder. I want, I feel, I would appreciate it if, and again, it's a request, but we're putting that I at the beginning. I think, I need, I expect, I wish. I understand you to say that's a great reflective starter. I thought you said, it was my understanding that, I guess I misheard, please, and I would like it very much if. So again, we want to focus on those making it connect, making the connection between the teacher and the student. We're not just telling them what to do. We're not just reacting. We are active listening and beginning with our I messages or you messages. So what's something adults can do? Adults identify which behaviors are acceptable and which are not. Now, sometimes these are included or written down before you even start working at this daycare center or learning center. They've come up with acceptable and unacceptable behaviors. So you need to be sure you familiarize yourself with what the center expects. Then, when problems arise, examine the situation and decide who owns the problem, because sometimes it's not always the student. Sometimes the problem was actually created by the teacher or by parents or by other adults or by other children too. So we have to stop and look at it. Who owns the problem? Very important term there. If we look at what is the difference between guidance and discipline, I really want you to have an understanding of this. Guidance is what we should be doing. We should be guiding the child into appropriate behaviors, into appropriate reactions, into learning situations, areas where we think growth is needed for a child. So we should be gently guiding them into these areas, whereas discipline is kind of a negative term. It's seen as a reaction to something that was done wrong. So instantly, we've got a child that's in a position of being told they did something wrong, and you're being disciplined for it. It can be a negative reaction. So an example of discipline might be we're losing center time, we're losing resource time, we're losing participating in the day's special celebration. So maybe you don't get to be a part of the Thanksgiving celebration. That would be really harsh for a child. So we want to try to guide, most importantly, and discipline is used only when definitely needed, but we need to turn it into a guiding situation too. I hope that makes sense. Some guidance techniques, what you might use instead of discipline. Positive reinforcement, praising the child when they've done something right, using those I messages, using those you messages, giving them attention, because we saw from that earlier slide that sometimes when a child misbehaves, it's just because they need some attention. Maybe they're not getting a lot at home. Maybe they feel like you're paying more attention to other children over them. So sometimes we need to step back and own our role in this. So we stop what we're doing and we give them the attention they need so that the day can progress on. Ignoring can sometimes be a guidance technique when it's a minor problem, when it's definitely not something when someone else might get hurt over it. There's nothing wrong with using this, ignoring. An example of this for me was with my children when we were at home, and maybe they're throwing a tantrum or having a meltdown, hoping to get a reaction from me. Instead, sometimes I would ignore it and the temper tantrum would go away. So we can use this as a technique. Uh, Using timeout is kind of on the fence there as far as if timeout is actually a good thing. What we're finding out is sometimes in setting a child in timeout that they forget why they're there. And it doesn't necessarily serve the purpose that we were hoping it was. It's kind of a form of punishment. Preventing the situation. Sometimes we can alter our environment to help prevent certain misbehaviors. Having a discussion, sitting out and talking to the child about what's going on, having an honest little talk about why they're not getting along with a child or why they had a negative reaction to an activity. And then lastly, looking at problem solving. And the child can be a part of that process too. And in a sense, then they feel like they own the solution to the problem as well. So, what approach to guidance should you use? Well, there's lots of different approaches out there. I mean, realistically, look on the internet. There's so many. So, what you need to do is look at your values and expectations. And by saying that, what I'm actually meaning is if you're working at a center, look at their values and expectations, what they expect of the children. Think about the philosophy of the program in which you work and how are we teaching these children? What type of curriculum are we using? Does this guidance technique go along with this philosophy as well? Because it needs to fit together. And consider your aims and the expectations of the families with whose children you're working. So what do they expect as well? Because we want to have a combination pulled in here. So you may develop a real eclectic approach. Maybe one part of this guidance program works, but another doesn't. And maybe you've used a little trial and error in another program, and you can bring these together to help create what's optimal for the children and the families in your program. A little bit about dealing with aggression in children, because yes, this comes up. And yes, it's a difficult situation. It's important to note, no matter what guidance program you're using, aggression should never be acceptable. So this is one item where we do not ignore aggression, we address it. Prevention through vigilance is important. If we have a child that is developing or has aggression tendencies, it's very important that the teachers in the classroom pay even more attention to this child to try to prevent the aggression escalating. So we can actually, by helping prevent it, we can also instill in this child behaviors that they might use instead. So some ECE classrooms have a little area set up specifically for this. It's not really a timeout area, but some centers call it a cool down area. So maybe it's a chair and a book, and maybe music is available, and they offer the child options to getting mad. So if you're feeling mad, you could go to this area and get away from the activity or get away from the situation. Read a book, listen to music, sit and breathe is another suggestion. And each center has their own suggestions, but you're teaching a child in this way to help control their anger as opposed to lashing out and being aggressive. So we can play a role in that. And lastly, minimize environmental factors that may contribute to aggression. And one of the first things that come up for me is maybe it's snack time and you have two children that just do not get along. You know that there's going to be a problem there. There's nothing wrong with seating them at different tables. That's a way of controlling this environmental factor, and it's going to happen sometimes. So separate them, and then in the process, through guiding, We're going to talk to both of them about each other and the importance of getting along and try to bring them together. So it's a process. I hope you've enjoyed this lecture, guys. We're down to our final slide. If you have any questions, please contact me. All right, have a great week.